I'd like to call to order this business meeting of the Cave Creek Unified School District. It is 6 o'clock, and today is Tuesday, May 14th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we are, item 1 is our public hearing for the, public hearing to be held at 6 p.m. of our business meeting. This is for our comments on our budget. Do we have any comments? All right. Okay. Item 1 point,
Madam President, we need to adjourn that meeting.
oh yes, I forgot. Is there a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We are out of our public hearing and now our business meeting. Item 1.2, public comments.
Madam President, we're on
I know,
2.1.
I'm reading the agenda. You put too many things on my agenda at one time. Okay. Okay, our roll call. I'm sorry, 2.3 roll call. All members of the board are present. Members of the cabinet present are Dr. Hendrickson, Mrs. Rodriguez, and Dr. Jensen, and of course, Mr. Dolezal. Formal adoption of the agenda, 2.4. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Okay. Is there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to pull the 5.7.
Okay. And I'm going to pull 5.1. And are you okay if we put both of those at the beginning of action consent?
Sure.
Okay. All in favor of the amended agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Item 2.5, the President's Report. That would be me. I had the pleasure of attending 2 of the signing days at Cactus Shadows. I was at the senior night for both track and lacrosse, and I will say it's the first lacrosse game that I ever went to, and that seems like a pretty brutal sport. I was also at the all-district band concert, and we have some very, very talented musicians in this district. And I also had the pleasure of doing a little tour at Sonoran Trails and Horseshoe Trails. And on Monday, I was at Dan Moore's swearing in. So that's what I've been doing. Item 2.6, board comments. Who wants to start?
Well, I guess I can start, since it's been a little while since we did this. I was actually going back, we didn't do a board thing last time, so since then, yes, did the Rock the District. That was amazing, seeing these kids and their talents. And then also, just prior to that, did the Employee of the Month breakfast, which is always a treat. It was a special treat because one of the teachers that was honored was one of my mentors here in Cave Creek, so it was always good to do that. So that's what I've been up to. Thank you.
It has been a super busy month, and it will continue for another 10 days or so. Last night I was able to attend the senior awards. It's amazing the talents that our kids have and the scholarships that they're getting. So it was great to see them recognized at that. Also was at earlier in the month at the Inspire Excellence Awards for our staff. Again, the talent that our kids just get to be impacted by is one of a kind. Also, we had the last business partner breakfast for the school year. I encourage anybody that has a business to get involved. It's a great way to kind of merge the community with the district. Attended a Cactus Shadows high school softball game, Rock the District. Also got to see the Spanish Honor Society induction a couple weeks ago, the spring dance recital at Cactus Shadows High School, and also the theater one acts. That's probably one of my favorite performances. The seniors actually direct and cast their own. A lot of them actually wrote their own screenplays for the first time this year, so that was a highlight as well. And then one of my favorite things, also the 6th grade science class at Black Mountain actually did a heart dissection of deer and elk, which is really neat to see if you've ever done any type of biology class. But due to the size of those animals, really neat experience. Got to see lots of parts and pieces. So I was happy to be there and see that. That's it for me right now.
All right, I'm following the overachiever. It was a busy month, and I had a great time visiting Brandy over at Desert Willow and learning, kind of doing an end of the year recap. We did a little video, and their theme this year was Better Together, and it was really exciting, fun. I can't even come up with the exact words to listen to her talk about the vision that she put forth and she and her staff put forth at the beginning of the year to pull all that together, the efforts that they went to make sure teachers are outside of the classrooms in the mornings, really looking students in the eye and welcoming them, greeting them, acknowledging them, and what a difference that makes setting up the day for success for everybody. The staff, it makes them feel better, the students feel better, and then got some exciting things looking forward to in that school with going completely to Spanish immersion all the way through. So it'll be fun. I really recommend everybody watch the school and watch the exciting things that are coming out of that. So that was great. And then welcome to our new board member, Mr. Dan Moore, and I know we'll be addressing that as well.
Okay.
I do have a couple things. As a new member, went to the One Voice concert. Obviously got to see Miss Dolezal at her finest. Great performances by all the kids. Boys volleyball finals. You've got a team that's been in, 2 years now? Newly developed, so it's fun to watch them go to the finals. Unfortunately, didn't fare the way they wanted, but they definitely played their hearts out. Went to the Veteran Heritage Project book and award ceremony. What a great experience to see students interviewing and writing their stories about veterans that have served and getting that public notoriety around that. Plus that some of the amazing families that award scholarships to the students that are part of VHP. So it was a really great ceremony. Cactus Shadows Golf Tournament. I think we raised some money there. It was fun to participate and help sell some additional donations. What was it? The hoedown at Horseshoe Trails, that was a blast. Went with a couple of my daughters, so we had a good time there. Sonoran Trails basketball at Cactus Shadow, always fun to support the girls' sports. We need more people to attend these sports for the girls out there, especially around basketball. And then finally, Rock the District. That was definitely a great evening and a lot of great music and just showcases the talent of our district. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for your efforts. Item 2.7, Superintendent's Report.
President Busby, members of the board, I would like to recognize the efforts of our Exceptional Student Services Department. We were notified May 7th that the Arizona Department of Education finished their audit without any findings of noncompliance. In other words, CCUSD is in compliance with state and federal statutes and have demonstrated the knowledge and capacity necessary to sustain compliance. Congratulations to our entire Exceptional Student Services team, and thank you for your hard work and dedication. I would also like to celebrate and acknowledge the hard work of Allison Mazog, who led and completed the conversion from our old website to our new site that officially launched yesterday. It looks amazing, and I really look forward to the functionality and organization of things like a calendar that can be district-wide or narrowed to a specific school, depending on what you're looking for. I'd also like to recognize the Cactus Shadows Falcon Athletes of the Month, Haley Robidoux for softball, along with all of her accomplishments on the diamond. Haley is closing out her high school academic career with a 4.3 weighted GPA and is going on to study fire science in order to become a firefighter. And Preston Auer, speaking of lacrosse, Preston Auer was one of our senior lacrosse boys, and beyond being a leader on our Falcon lacrosse team, Preston embodies the perfect balance of academic excellence and athletic prowess. He's a true asset to our community. Another big shout out to 11 of our Falcon track student athletes for making the performance list of 2024. Top of the Mountain invite. This is an elite level meet where only the top 24 individuals and top 16 relay teams get to attend. They competed at Red Mountain High School in Mesa this past Tuesday. Congratulations to Jalen Wigg, Emily Perkins, Madeline Bradbury, Allison Reamer, Tatum Nelson, Kylie Nelson, Ava Harris, Ben Morgan, Connor Oliver, Andrew Villegas, and Caden Hartman. Congratulations to the following students who signed their letters of intent on April 17th. Kylie Vasiloff for soccer to Scottsdale Community College, Gavin Brocht for football to the U.S. Merchant Marines Academy, Patrick Geary for baseball to Mesa Community College, and Ava Harris for track and cross country to Westmont College. Congratulations to the two students, Cactus Shadow students, who signed their letters of intent on May 8th. Ian Grubbs for wrestling to Grandview, and Easton Millard for the javelin to the U.S. Merchant Marines Academy. Congratulations to 27 students from the class of 2024 who completed the Superintendent's Challenge. They were honored at the Senior Awards night last night and given their honor cord to wear during graduation. There were a total of 49 students who participated in the Students' Challenge for the class of 24, and collectively those students volunteered 8,818 and 35 hundredths of hours to the community. Congratulations to Austin Stasic, a Cactus Shadows senior who was a finalist in the School Connect Student Champion of the Year Award held on April 25th. Austin also emceed the National Veterans Heritage Annual Ceremony and Book Signing event in downtown Phoenix on April 28th. Lastly, congratulations to Joshua Maxwell Tohill and Eric Mullenmeister on being named co-valedictorians for the class of 2024. They each will graduate next week with a weighted GPA of 4.9. That concludes my superintendent report.
Okay, thank you. Item 3.1, call to the public. We do have one individual, Thomas Lucari, but before you speak, I have to read something. According to ARS 38-431.01H, governing board members may not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during an open call to the public. The only allowable responses a governing board member may make are: 1, a board member may respond if there is a direct criticism of the board member; 2, a board member may direct staff to look into a matter; or 3, a board member can ask to have this item placed on a future agenda. Speakers need to be mindful of what they say when presenting to the board. Inappropriate comments could be considered slanderous. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name at the microphone.
Hello, I am Thomas Licari, and I'm a concerned parent and advocate for all student athletes. It's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you to the board members that came over and introduced themselves to me. You guys are a great bunch, and I really have enjoyed this so far. The issue at hand is Cactus Shadows High Schools is moving from 5A to 4A. This classification is due based on enrollment. This is an antiquated way to view sports classification. I do believe that the school administrators had a duty to tell the parents and broadcast this utilizing all the methods available to them, from email to text to websites to phone trees. None of that had taken place. Why this matters to students is it's an academic progress. So it's going to be a disruption in their curriculum. It will affect their schedules, their resources, their academic focus, and basically the economy of the parents. Going from 5A to 4A greatly increases their travel time, and it's an expense to the school unnecessarily. This was an issue that was easily avoided, and as I kind of progressed through this, you will receive information from me which will show you that all it required was for the superintendent to send an email to the AIA requesting that the sports stay. So with that, there is Section B, point 2, ethical standards. I will be filing that document with the section shall not deliberately suppress or distort information and facts relevant to the pupil's academic progress. Again, you guys are going to be receiving all of this stuff from me. I know it's really hard to sum all this up in a 3-minute time frame, but if you do your due diligence, and what I'm asking you to do is investigate. I'm going to call for the AG to formally investigate this, because it's a change that didn't have to be made, and it's going to harm the children. It ways you can't even fathom, and one of them is college recruitment, which definitely is going to hurt their dollars. I appreciate the time.
Your time is up.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay. Item 4.1, welcome to the new CCUSD board member, presented by Mr. Dolezal.
Madam President, members of the Governing Board, on March 25th, 2024, the CCUSD Governing Board held a special meeting and interviewed community members who submitted letters of interest to fill the vacant board seat for the remainder of the 2024 calendar year. At the March 26, 2024 business meeting, the Governing Board voted on and recommended 3 candidates for the vacant board seat. On March 27, 2024, Superintendent Dolezal forwarded the CCUSD Governing Board's 3 recommendations, along with all of the letters of interest received, to the Maricopa County School Superintendent, Mr. Steve Watson. Superintendent Watson held interviews and appointed Dan Moore to fill the vacant board seat for the remainder of the 2024 calendar year. We would like to recognize and welcome Member Moore to his first board meeting this evening.
Item 4.2, the CCUSD Governing Board commitments presented by me. Commitments have various names across organizations, norms, standards, operating procedures, and expectations. Whichever term is used, commitments are established with the end goal of working together through trust and shared understanding on how to operate as an individual within a whole organization. On August 22nd, 2023, the superintendent and the governing board members participated in a small and whole group activities aimed at establishing objectives for the CCUSD governing board. The norms created from that meeting and listed below articulate the governing board's operating values and behaviors, create understanding of how to productively conduct governing board business, and establish the functional expectations of each individual member for the benefit of the whole governing board and the CCUSD community. Okay, everybody has a copy of the board norms and commitments. And I'm going to read through these, but as I read through them, if anybody has any comments or thoughts regarding each one of these, they would be greatly appreciated. And this is a reminder for all of us, but this is also to bring Dan into the fold with how we got here and help him understand, us as groups. And so anyway, our first norm and commitment that we agreed on is we will keep students at the forefront of decision making. Comments? That one pretty much speaks for itself. The second one, we will represent the board and the district by leading by a positive example, actively listening, positively acknowledging comments, positively promoting the board on and off the dais. Any thoughts on these? Okay. We will raise awareness of the district's importance by engaging with the community to increase local buy-in. On this one, I will say, as board members, I think it's really important that we do what we can to embrace the community at large, because the reality is our voting community includes a majority of people who don't have kids in our schools. And so it's important for that part of our community to really understand who we are and what our needs are. The fourth one, we will respect the sensitive nature of information we are privy to and seek clarification and guidance when necessary. We will acknowledge receipt of communications and inform staff of any significant conversations regarding the district. As a board member, we will contribute our knowledge, passion, and perspective to the collective decision-making of the board. This one, I think, is really important because it's not what I personally think. It's about putting aside our how I want to do it, and embracing the idea that collectively we can create something better and greater. And let's see. And the last one was, as board members, we acknowledge the board's role as a policy-making entity that trusts the role of the district leaders. I will say this was probably one of the most beneficial group kind of gatherings the board has had, because this was really a very good opportunity for the board to freely work and understand where each other has come from. And I think the way that we've kind of all gelled together speaks highly for the efforts that we've put into this. And so I'm looking forward to you coming into the fold and being part of the program here.
Thank you.
So.
Yeah, I'll just back up what you said there. That evening was really productive, and it came out with some really good discussion, and we found a lot of things that 7 of those things that we really had in common and felt deeply about. So I look forward to continuing this. So good job, all of us.
Yes, everybody gets a pat on the back. All right, any other comments from anybody? Okay. Item 4.3, fiscal year 2023-24 budget revision presented by Mrs. Rodriguez.
Hey, good evening. Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. This evening, I want to present a revised budget. We'll be asking you to approve that later on in the meeting. Just want to kind of talk about a few things. So the budget process, as we know it, is we propose a budget, which we will be bringing to you in June. We adopt a budget about 10, 15 days later than that. And then we have a couple of marks during the year where we revise. So in December, we brought you a revision, and unfortunately, that was because our enrollment went down, so we had to revise down. Again, this evening in May, we have the last opportunity to revise our budget. If you recall, our budget is based on current year ADM. Those are our student counts. And because it's always ever changing during the year, we have these kind of marks where we need to revise our budget. So this evening, I'm going to share that with you. By May 15th, we have this opportunity. And so here we are this evening. So here is what has occurred since the December revision. So we have, again, declined in enrollment. We've seen that decline happen all year long. You all receive enrollment reports in your board packets. You've seen those numbers going down. And unfortunately, we are down 27 from December to May. So the impact of that is 167,780 in a decrease in our M&O. So we have a couple of other areas that we look at as well at revision time. One of those is our unrestricted capital, which we call district additional assistance. That went up slightly just because we had some additional interest that was posted to that account. And then classroom site fund, we look at that as well, and that went up a little bit because of some adjustments for our ADM reporting that happened from last year that we were able to see from our CTED students. So having said that, I would like to entertain any questions at this point. Our next steps are to have you approve this revision this evening, and then we will file those reports as required to the Department of Education tomorrow.
I do have a couple of questions, and I think because of some other things that have been going on and what we're going to be doing later today, I probably will circle back to some of this stuff a little bit later. But can you just, you had mentioned it, that the ADM, can you just remind everybody what that stands for?
It's average daily membership is how our enrollment is counted, and it is it's still based on average for the first 100 days. Mm-hmm. So what we look at is not exactly how many children were in attendance, but how many children were enrolled. Right. So if a child was enrolled on the first day of school and they were enrolled in our schools until the 100th day of school, we can count them as one whole child. If they were left us on the 75th day of school, they would be a 0.75 funding. So that's why that ADM is going to look different than what an enrollment number would be. Typically, it's less. And a lot of times what will happen, especially in a unified or a high school only district, is you see early graduators. And so those students then after, if they graduate before the 100th day, will lose them. So that's very typical to lose high school kids in the middle of the year. And unfortunately, high school kids weigh a little bit more as far as the funding formula. We get a little bit more money for high school kids than elementary kids, so that does have a factor as well.
And so what is the main thing that drives our budget? How is our budget determined by the state?
The main thing is the number of students that are enrolled in our schools.
Okay. And do you know offhand how much that is per student? What we would get?
Well, because each student, depending on if you're a kindergartner, kindergartners only get funded at half, so we don't receive whole funding for a kindergarten student.
Small.
And then they don't take much, right? Which is not true. We invest a lot of money in our kindergarten kids, and they're typically smaller class sizes, so we have more teachers, right, for the number of students. So that's something that we can always lobby for down at the legislature, full-day funding for kindergarten. I'll put that plug in. But high school kids get a little bit higher funding. So to answer your question, on average, we get about $6,000 a student when you average out all of the weights for the children.
Okay. One of the reasons I brought this up is because it was in the news just recently about the Brookings Institute putting out the information about the ESA program that we have here in Arizona and the effect that it's having, especially in the wealthier districts. And so I was reading that and I thought, well, Cave Creek Unified School District, that is like the wealthiest property value-wise in the state. So it's probably taking a nice little toll on us. So I went out to the AD website and saw that on the second quarter of this year, we have 978 students that would be in Cave Creek Unified School District, but are not because they're on the vouchers. Does that pretty much sound right?
Well, so Arizona is a district or a state of school choice. Mm-hmm. So yes, they could choose to come to our district. Yeah. State funding is going to fund those empowerment scholarships. That is state funding that might otherwise come to public schools. Right. So typically in the past, private schools have been paid for by the parents. Mm-hmm. So, and we have a lot of parents, a lot of families in this district because we are one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest district in the state, that send their kids to private school, their choice. Right. But now the public dollars that would be going to public schools are going to pay for those private school educations.
Yeah, so when I got that information, I did ask Marcy to at least give me some of the background numbers, and they are kind of staggering. In 2021, we had 81 students on ESAs, 109 in 2022. Then the majority here, the legislature passed the universal voucher, 922 in 2023, and now 978. I don't know exactly if you put that $6,000 each to what these people, these numbers, this shows, we've been talking about loss of enrollment ever since I got here. This is having, it seems like a devastating effect on us and our budget. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, and I'll probably be coming back to it when we start talking about ASBA, but I just wanted to get that information out there. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Fortney. Yes, and if you do the math, it's about $6 million
$6 million.
from the district. Yes.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
On
Member
the
Gilmore.
enrollment data, which I haven't seen yet, so a little behind. But do we understand on the number that you gave, was it 27? Do we understand defection? We talk about enrollment, but what are we losing? And what I mean by that is when I go out to some of the schools, I've seen, at the elementary level, they're coming in from, they're not just in our district, they live out of our district. So as they move to middle school and high school, what are we losing? Because if the highest point of return is high school, are we more concerned about new enrollment as far as coming through the elementary, or are we paying attention to our retention factor?
We pay attention to all of that, all of the above, and we watch, and we actually make personal contact with the families that leave us to get some feedback on, what were some of the driving forces that caused them to leave. Now, a lot of our students, they move out of state, or they, to another school district. If they just move out of the district, that's, pretty understandable. We've lost, and you'll see this in your enrollment reports as you get them in the board packet, but we give you some reasons why kids withdraw or where they've gone. And we've seen a significant amount of high school kids going online, in the recent years since 2020 happened. And a lot of the students are embracing the online environment for their learning for different reasons. And then a lot of what we see, a lot of families are younger students. If we have younger students here in the district, because a lot of young families just can't afford it, but a lot of the younger students, a lot of families are homeschooling those children. So we're not seeing them. So where we lost our enrollment is what we can see is about 250 students from graduating, 450 seniors, and only 250 kindergartners come in. So we're watching that trend as well. We've done we had a demographer do demographic study, and birth rates have gone down. So there's so many factors to what could be causing us to see that decline in enrollment. And then I do believe that, as Member Fortney pointed out, I do believe that the empowerment scholarships have empowered parents that maybe were on the borderline, couldn't afford private schools. Now they feel like they can afford a private school.
Thank you.
Marcy, can I add one thing there, Member Moore? I just happened to figure this out today. We are graduating approximately 450 students. 217 of them were with us in kindergarten. And so we've gained kids, which is typically what happens. And so this isn't a new phenomenon that we have a smaller kindergarten than we have a graduating class. That's been something that's been around. Obviously, we've gained a lot more kids along the way because, as our demographer says, the houses are more affordable for older families than they are for the young families, among other things.
Thank you.
Just a quick question on that 100-day cutoff. So if any new student comes in after the 100 days, do we get credit for those? Do we get paid?
Thank you. Member Omer, the answer to that would be no, not in this fiscal year. But if we can retain that student, which we hope, they come and they'll like it here and they'll want to stay, then we'll get the funding for them next year. But no, we educate them for free for 80 days because we go to school 180 days. So,
Any other questions or comments? Okay, item 4.4, creating the master schedule, presented by Dr. Jensen and Mrs. Barella.
Thank you, President Busby, Vice President Walker, members of the board. Before we begin, I want to go back and underline that first commitment that you guys just discussed. I thought that was very appropriate, that it was, we will keep students at the forefront of our decision making. And so as we were preparing this presentation for this evening, we're going to get really into the weeds of master scheduling and of the course catalog. And if you hear nothing else tonight, it's a very complex process. If you hear nothing else tonight, I want you to hear that we keep students at the forefront of our master scheduling process as well. So with that, I'd like to start. Clicker. There you go. First of all, I want to start by recognizing the team of folks who helped us to create this presentation. It felt a bit like explaining how an airline creates their flight schedule. There's so many variables, there's so many moving parts, many of which we cannot control. And so it took several members of our team to kind of boil this down to something that is comprehensible to people who are not living and breathing it every single day. So we've got our student information systems engineer, Vicki Fisher-Boone, who helped us, and she is often she's the coder behind the master schedule. We have our Director of College and Career Readiness, Erin Scherer, who really takes the lead on the course catalog. Our Assistant Principal of Educational Services at Cactus Shadows High School, Mr. Jason Schnee, and of course, our Principal at Cactus Shadows High School, Sarah Barella. So in this presentation, as was requested, we will explain the purpose and the process of creating a course catalog. We'll provide a basic understanding of the process that we used to make a master schedule, and we'll explain how that process affects a teacher's schedule. The first part is creating the course catalog, and this is an important resource that our students and our families rely on. Our counselors hold it at their desks like a Bible, and they are beholden to whichever course catalog was in effect during that student's freshman year. So right now they are acting on 4 different versions of the course catalog because they have whatever we said were the rules for the seniors, the juniors, the sophomores, and the freshmen. Those rules change based off of some of the policies that we shove on them. I'll say it that way. Get put on us, and then we put on them. So some of it is the policies that change, and then other parts are things that come out of committee work. I won't get into the controversial issues of, valedictorians, what do we call people, how do we calculate class rank, all of that stuff is spelled out in the course catalog. In all honesty, we try to make very few changes from year to year because, as you can imagine, it's hard for the counselors to keep track of all those changes, but there are minor changes every year, and it's usually based off of some experiences that we had. And again, going back to that core principle of putting student needs first, to making sure that, did we fail a small group of students up there because we were bound by that course catalog? Well, then we may need to make an adjustment for future years. Click. So the way this works, again, I'm going to reiterate that all of the decisions are based on the students. The new courses are... we have new course request forms that are sent to all of the staff in the first quarter. The new courses are approved on the basis of the overall impact to the schedule. More courses and choices does not necessarily mean a good thing all the time. It spreads our teachers out and our students out. We still have it's the same pie. We're just slicing it more ways when we add more courses. However, we also want to meet the changing needs and the changing interests of our students as well. So this process provides teachers the chance to give new or to present new high interest classes to students. We give preference for, or I don't want to say preference, but we do place some priority on dual enrollment courses. That's always an important one that provides our students with college credit while they're in high school. Career and industry certifications, that's something that our community really values. So if there's a teacher or department that wants to transition a class into a CTE course, we are always going to do everything we can to support that. An example, well, those are like culinary and others like that. Stagecraft would be one. I think right now we have a stagecraft class, and that's a class that, we could transition down the road and make it a theater stagecraft where the students also earn career and technical education credit as well and get an industry certificate. Okay, let me see if there's anything else up there. We then we remove courses that did not occur due to lack of student interest in the past year or the past few years. Or if they're redundant, there might be, I don't think we did that this year with any of them that I'm thinking of. We then send the final copy to all the department leads and the counselors to share with their departments. And then we present, I think we did this in early January. We presented the course catalog to our governing board. An example of a course that we added this year would be yoga. Our PE department felt like they were missing out particularly on some of their female students, so they proposed yoga, and they filled up 2 sections worth of yoga. They recruited them, they made sure that was an interest area, and it has been wildly popular. Moving on, I'll give you a chance at the end to ask questions. Moving on to creating the master schedule. Ms. Barella, do you want to wait? I think this is you, yeah?
So one of the things I noticed when I came to Cactus Shadows High School is there was kind of a disconnect between the information the parents were receiving versus the information the kids are receiving. And we all know they stuff the papers in their bags and they're like, oh yeah, we went and listened to that today, but the information never gets delivered to the parents in detail like the parents wish it would. So something that I brought to Cactus Shadows when I came is coffee with the counselors. We used to do it where the students would get the presentations and then the parents would come, but this year we actually flipped it. So this year we invited our parents in. They got a mini presentation of the course request process, explained the offerings, we talked about the different focuses for kids. So you might have a kid who is more workplace driven, so what might that look like, and the CTE and EBIT options for them. We talked about if your kid is an Ivy League kid and pursuing those schools, what that pathway might look like. We talked about the tri-state students. We talked about the kids who might go work for a family business or enlist. So we presented all of those options as well as the course selection sheet to the parents, any new opportunities that were going to be available to them. And then the students come in and meet individually with the kids. The other thing that I changed is before I got to Cactus Shadows, like a second-hour teacher would put in a video. That's kind of an old term. They would show a video of the counselors that they had recorded, and they would just talk about, here's the sheet, here's what you need to do. And I wanted our students to be more educated about all of the opportunities that we provide, because we do have this course catalog that's full of opportunities for our kids, but they may not know. Like their friend or their sibling took this class, and so that's all that they know about and they're aware about. So last year CTE did this whole video where each of the kids saw the video and all the CTE electives. Teachers come in, they're invited to come in and really sell their electives. Molly Gum, 2 years ago, wanted to move out of English and just teach AP Psychology. So I told her, absolutely, if you can get the kids. At that time, we had one section of AP Psych. So she went in and she sold her class to the kids, and she's been teaching 5 sections of AP Psychology since then. So I wanted to not only inform the kids about the opportunities and the offerings that we do have, but also give those teachers who teach those electives the opportunity to sell their electives. So the counselors meet and explain everything. We have the coffee with the counselors now so that the parents are in the loop. And then students then make their course selections. There's kind of a form that they fill out and they submit. Once those go into the system, it's so hard to explain this on a different level. So they go into the system, and then we have the number of kids that requested each of the classes. I think that's my next one. So for example, 223 kids requested Algebra 1, and then we're told by HR what we need to staff the classes at in order for a section to make. So we put all of the student counts in their first choice, the requests go in there. Obviously, kids have to have 4 years of math, so this gets a little bit kind of into the weeds, depending on where we have to offer a ton of different math levels because our kids are all at different math levels, but they all need 4 years of math to graduate. So when they fill out their course request, we get the student count, and then that number of sections section is, that's where it does the math to tell us how many sections that we need. And then obviously sometimes we have to round up, like a 4.8. I can't have 4.8 sections of college math. I have to have 5. We do try to keep some of them a little bit lower. So we talk to our teachers. Where would you like us to up the numbers in order to reduce the numbers? So our Algebra 1, those are our new babies coming in from 8th grade. It's helpful to them to have smaller class sizes. So we round up there to try to give a little bit more room and space for those teachers to work with those kids. Where you have the AP stats or you have an honors Algebra 2, you can see we needed 4.1 sections, but those math teachers feel that it's easier to have larger class sizes with the honors kids than it is to have with the general pathway kids. So we work with them on that to help figure out, to help support the teachers and the students in those classes. Again, these are required classes, but the system works the same for all of them. We stick them into the spreadsheet, and we kind of go for there working with HR and the number of FTE that we have to use to fill our classes. We also have, as you know, we offer a lot to our students. So we have dual enrollment opportunities, honors opportunities, AP opportunities, and IB opportunities. So we really try to work with our AP coordinator, our IB coordinator, our dual enrollment teachers as well, to try to fit the needs as many students as we can in their request. Sometimes what happens is we have to really appreciate our teachers for this. We have Amanda Seaman right now. She teaches 2 different levels in one class. So sometimes the material matches, but it doesn't always necessarily. So for example, like your IB math might be put in with an AP or with a calculus, depending on what it is. That means that that teacher is only getting paid for that one section, but she's actually prepping for 2 different classes within the same section because they are 2 different exams or 2 different outcomes at the end. So we try to work the best that we can to fit the needs of all of our students and their requests. So again, we look at the number of sections we need, and we create a skeleton schedule. We then send the skeleton schedule to the department leads to review with their department and share feedback with administration. We then create a draft of the master schedule on a spreadsheet, and we code the master schedule in PowerSchool. This is so much work. We've started this in January, and we're actually still working on it right now. It's not perfect yet. Teachers move, kind of rearrange. We have kids who have such unique schedules that everything they picked, it doesn't all fit in the 6 periods, so we have to work with them to find something that works with their schedule and meets their needs. So we're actually doing this every single day right now. Coding the master schedule in PowerSchool takes about 80 to 100 hours. That's where you type each of the teachers' individual schedules in. We then make adjustments to the master schedule by moving sections around, so we kind of push a button and it fills them in throughout the day where we have them. And then we look at it and we're like, well, only 1 kid went into there, so that's obviously not a great time for this class to be taught. Where do we need to put it so that this class doesn't have 40 kids in it and this one just 1? So we kind of make adjustments on that to fill it better, and we really try to get to about 92% of our kids having their schedule requests met and scheduled without conflict. Then we look at the remaining 8% and look at their alternate selections to fill their schedules. We do have students pick first choice and then second choice and third choice, and we use those to fill those alternate holes. If a teacher leaves, we start the entire process all over again unless we find an exact replacement. So our psychology teacher left. We do have another teacher who really wanted to teach the AP. She has lots of experience doing that. We had 3 sections of that. She's taking that. That means I have to move those 3 sections that were tied to her to somebody else, and then figure out what we're going to do with the applied psychology. So it kind of restarts the whole process over again. This isn't an efficient way by any means. But like Patty said at the beginning, we're student-driven, and we base our master schedule off of student requests and what they want to be successful. You were talking about open enrollment. We have to compete with the schools around us. And so they can go to bigger schools that have lots more offerings than us. So we need to make sure that we're meeting those needs of the kids who are choosing to be Falcons at Cactus Shadows High School. So we kind of work with all of those pieces. We could actually plug in and say, I want this teacher to teach these 5 things during the day. Maybe they're going to teach algebra, 3 sections of algebra 1 and algebra 2. At the computer, we'll put it all together. But it's not the best way to meet the needs of the students, and we keep students first in the scheduling process. Some things that go into it that we also have to look at are things ABOR approved? Are they meeting the state requirements? College entrance requirements. So I did hear someone say, you know, we need to advertise where our kids go. At the senior award ceremony last night, I would say more of our kids are going out of state than are actually staying in state. So out-of-state colleges have different requirements. They might need 3 world languages instead of, if they're in-state, they only need 2, or they might not need any if they're going to go to NAU. So we try to make sure we're meeting all of those needs based on the post-secondary desires of our students. We have to look at the prerequisites. Do they have what they were supposed to take in order to take the next level class? We have our ESS students who we schedule first because they need to be with their case manager. They might need to be in a co-taught class, so we have to fill those as well. Are they meeting graduation requirements? Have they failed a class now that they need to take this elective out and put something in to make sure that they graduate on time? Are they meeting their instructional minutes? That's why our seniors are here for 4 periods. Do they need credit recovery? Or are they going to look at advancement? Maybe they're accelerated in math, and how does that impact the schedule? What are our teachers certified in? Because if we have them teach something that they're not certified in, it's not in the best interest of the students. What can we do to retain our teachers? The IB, I mean, there's so much. Senior early release, the EVIT kids, early college, and all of the things. We take all this into consideration for each individual student. What do we have? 1,518 right now. So when creating a teacher schedule, we don't create a teacher schedule based on their request. We do have teachers who will come and say, you know, I would prefer this prep, or I'll prefer that, and we definitely try. But like I said, if we fill the classes and there's only 5 kids in the class, it's not going to work. We do have some teachers with accommodations, and we do have to meet those needs as well. Maybe they need lunch with their prep and lunch and things like that, so we have to accommodate those teachers when thinking about that, but everything else is solely based off of where it fits for our students. Some things we do to help accommodate teacher schedules, say we only have 3 sections of, we have 3 sections of Mandarin available to a teacher at our school. We then reach out to the middle school because they're certified usually junior high up to high school, and we'll talk to Jill and work with Jill and say, hey, do you have anything open that this teacher is certified to teach where we can kind of fill their schedule? So right now, we do have choir, band, guitar, world language, and our ESS department all share. So we have 3 teachers right now that traveled, or 4 teachers that travel down to the middle school right now halfway through their day to have that full schedule. We do get requests for part-time, and we do try to accommodate that. If we can't accommodate it, then you know that we apologize, but we do try to accommodate part-time as well. We are working this year, the district did a great thing in offering the Wednesday PLCs, but I was hoping for a little bit more collaboration time. So I've asked Jason to work hard on making sure that our English and math teachers have a common prep. So we're working on that so that they get an hour each day in addition to those Wednesdays to the best that we can. It's not always perfect, but we're trying really hard to accommodate that as well to get the teachers to be able to collaborate. And then, like I said, we have to accommodate some unique medical situations with our teachers as well.
And just to add one thing there too, Ms. Barella, was the one of the nice things, even though it's hard, but because we're a single high school district, when we do share with the middle school, they also use that as a recruiting opportunity to build their program. So we saw One Voice last week, or however many weeks ago it was, a couple weeks ago, where we were, that's been an intentional collaboration between all of the elementary music teachers and then Mrs. Dolezal at the middle and the high school, to make sure that those kids get to see, this is what I look up, this is what I get to do someday. And then we did the same with band. And then our world languages does it a little bit as well. I don't know that any of them would choose that. However, they have all embraced it and do a great job of recruiting their folks.
So once we have the feedback from the department chairs and we put it into the system to see what works where, then we create a master schedule. And we refine it until we get it as perfect as we possibly can for our teachers. So this is an example of what our math department, this isn't even what it looks like right now. And we started preparing this presentation, a few weeks ago, and we've had to make some changes based on how the kids were filling into the classes. So this is an example of what that kind of looks like when we produce it and put it out. So in kind of summary, we work really on keeping students first when we design it. We have the course selections and opportunities. The teachers get an opportunity to go and kind of sell their classes. Parents get to be included in on part of that now. We create the shell of the master schedule based upon course request, and then we have to go through the process many, many times until it's as perfect as we can possibly get it to make sure the students are getting what they've requested. So there are a lot of variables. It's a super complex system that go into creating the master schedule. It's a huge puzzle. And we eventually get all the pieces in. Wow. Do you have any questions?
I do have a lot of questions. Can we go back to the slides kind of for each section just to keep my brain organized a little bit better? Let's see. Okay. For this section, I think it's still further back where the teacher puts in a request. Here we go. That form for staff in the first quarter, that's though for classes for the next school year, correct?
Yeah, we can't add classes mid-year. You guys approve it.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. And so I'm just trying to wrap that. I mean, it's a lot of organizing, and then with that, at that time, is there collaboration like done at the middle school to know what they need coming up, as far as who's interested in honors? I mean, I would think that planning would have to start that
Yes.
far back,
Member
or like the recruitment of electives and things like that.
Yes. Yes, I think I know what you're meaning, Vice President Walker. So at the middle school, and next year we're also going to start course requests in November. This year we started it in February, I think. So next year we're going to start in November, but the middle school did start in December. And those students made their course requests, which then obviously dictates what the freshman schedule would look like. And so, yes, there is some collaboration. And we do look like, Mrs. Dolezal's looking right now at her 7th and 8th graders. And right now, choir at the middle school, I'll just use this as an example, is a semester-long course. And so she had a ton of kids in first semester and then fewer kids second semester because they wanted to try something else. And we want our kids to explore and try a lot of things. But then she's needing to find a way to recruit those kids that she had in first semester. And, hey, guys, remember how much you loved me? You want to come sign up for 9th grade choir? And so that's been a challenge that we're working through with her and our band director as well, to make sure that they keep that going through. There's often unintended consequences about some of the little things that we've done. The credit where we were giving students high school credit in middle school, that had some unintended consequences in terms of course selection down the road. I don't know that it hurt students, but it might have hurt the way some of our classes were being filled up. So that's every single decision that they make has a ripple effect on our schedule.
The other two things, if you guys know, because you've attended, I brought in the Future Falcon Friday during the day, where they go into those arts classes, and they go into a math class and a science class before they register. So we have the Future Falcon Fly-In where they actually get to walk around campus and see all of that. And then we do the Future Falcon Night where the parents can come in and we've got the clubs available, the counselors and all the department chairs available in the library to ask those questions too before they register.
Okay. And then at that time, when all these new requests are going in as well, if there's a staff member that they know is retiring or moving and needs, at that time, is there collaboration done at all at the like department lead level, or?
Yes. Typically, though, we would just post the position and then hope to find somebody else. As much as we hate to be replaceable, we're all replaceable. So we would just post the position if we know that somebody's retiring, and then see that if we can get someone. If we can't find a replacement, and of course they're never going to be the same person, but
I mean,
if
for
we
the
can't find
next year,
someone,
though.
that's for the next, yes, that would be for the
okay.
next year. So as soon as they turn in their resignation, we submit.
Okay.
Or we post, and then we start hiring for the next year. But we wouldn't cancel a class just because if Miss Dolezal decides to leave, we're not going to stop choir at Cactus Shadows.
Right.
And actually, that's one thing that I kind of want to add and highlight that we didn't mention in here, is that we're committed to keeping it a comprehensive high school at this time. We don't want, so while we're letting students drive the schedule, we're also wanting to offer all of the arts, all of the PE, all of the world languages. I'm missing CTE. Those are kind of our big four. We still want to offer all of those as options. We don't all of a sudden want to be a school that has no band. We don't have very many students enrolled in band. We could very easily just say, oh, band's going to disappear. But what's a small town high school without a really quality band? And so that's something that we want to build. And so we're working with our band director to go down to the lower levels and build that up. Even though right now he has fewer students, we're kind of saying, I realize like we try to aim for 160 to 190 on a teacher's caseload, but some of our arts classes that have 70 students on their caseload. And we're trying to protect it to the extent that we can, and we're committed to still offering at least some of those entry-level courses. Now, we might not be able to have, symphonic band and jazz band 5 and, all of the different types of band, but we want to continue at least having the basics.
I've even farmed them out to our PTOs. I've offered them to come perform at events for them if they want.
And then you did mention some of the classes getting like stagecraft if it becomes a CTE. I guess I get the benefit that is there a benefit for the student? Because it kind of already checks that fine arts. You need one fine arts for graduation or a CTE. What would be the benefit to have it be
Yes,
both?
I'm going to have Ms. Scher answer part of this. I'm going to start, but she knows more deeply about all the benefits to the student. For one, we get more money. I will just flat out, the district gets more money when we have more CTE classes. But the students get that certificate that then can be used towards further education in their career. Erin, do you want to add anything?
Got it, but it does come with more funding, and their
This is Cher. Can you come to the mic?
CTE classes do come with more funding, and there are standards that are aligned to those classes, so it's a 2-year program. In that instance, they would have opportunity to use that funding for equipment so that students are learning on state-of-the-art equipment, and that could go in the Fine Arts Center if students were using it, so that would be part of it. And then also aligned to an industry certification, so at the end of those 2 years, students would test to have an industry certification, helping them to gain entry-level employee.
Does the teacher have to have an additional
Yes.
type of certification
Yes,
to
they
get
have
that?
to have a CTE certification.
Okay. And is that something, do we incentivize staff to get that some way? Or how quickly can they get that if they're like, oh, might as well double dip on this, or our funding's larger?
CTE certification is slightly different than academic certification because
Okay.
we can use teachers' work experience along with their academic experience. So if they've worked in industry, they can count those hours towards their certification. So someone that's been working in that industry for several years will likely be able to get that CTE certification.
Okay.
And a quick follow-up to that, one of the certification there's different certification requirements for CTE and different ongoing professional development that they're required to do that is not typical of a general education teacher. So knowing that there is additional monies they have to put in themselves to maintain this training every so many years, one of the things that we approved earlier this year was using CTE dollars to pay for those professional developments that these teachers are required to do to remain with their certification. A teacher on a regular certification will get their recert hours through PD that the school is providing, PD that's happening during May Mania conferences they go to. CTE is very specialized, and so oftentimes they have to pay to go to these trainings in order to get that. And Aaron has worked to make sure that we are able to kind of fund those to offset those costs for those employees.
So one follow-up question to that. So CTE versus like EVIT, is there a consequence or a benefit to the district? Sorry.
That's okay. CTE is, I guess how you're kind of phrasing that is we have what's called the central campus and satellite campus. EVIT is the central campus, and they actually do oversee us as a satellite campus. So our CTE programs are overseen by EVIT.
Okay.
I don't know how far in the weeds you want me to go with the funding, but so we get money back from EVIT for our kids that stay on our campus.
Okay. And the kids that go to EVIT, what does
Yeah,
that look like?
We do get some funding for them as
Okay.
well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Hold on one second. Done with that
Okay.
section.
Take your time.
For the staff members that travel between the middle school and high school, 5 classes is a full schedule. How does that timing work for them to still do they get a prep and a break? Because the classes don't start, and our middle school doesn't sit right next to the high school either. They're kind of on opposite ends of our district. How does
Yes.
that timing work,
So,
like drive time?
That's one of the variables that we have to account for. So we give them, right now, the way we do it is their morning classes are at Cactus Shadows. And then they get their prep period attached to their lunch, and they drive there. We do a lot, like 20 minutes or something like that, for them. And so then they get there, and then they finish their day at Sonoran Trails. Most of them, and we've talked about flipping it because most of them also have after-school clubs. And so they then drive back up to Cactus Shadows to do their after-school clubs. That would be band and choir, both do those. French, she only comes back if she has a meeting, I believe, or something along those lines. But yes, we do allow for driving time.
And with Sonoran Trails starting a little bit later, their prep and their lunch is longer than the teachers on my campus. If that makes sense, they get a little bit more time because of the way that the periods are.
Okay. And then can we go to the last section, the third section on here? Yeah, right here. 92%, and I think this is probably more for electives than core classes, where I would think this would get really an art of filling in gaps. But you said they pick up to 3 choices, and 92% they get their first choice without conflict. Is that what that means?
Yeah, that's what we aim for, is to get, that's why we move the sections around. So we aim to get 92% there without conflict.
So it's almost like a little game. Like you drag, geometry over to second period, and we got up to 89%, but not to 92%. So, and like the computer tells us that's where
It's software that's
the coding
managing
does it for
Okay.
us. And just to underscore here, I know Mrs. Barella said it earlier, we could, there is a way, and Vicki came from Deer Valley, and so she knows this, and she said one year they did it at one of their high schools, where we keep ourselves out of it, and the scheduler does the whole thing. The computer does it all. But the students don't get what they want. A lot of people end up unhappy. Even teachers end up unhappy. Like everybody's kind of unhappy. It did not go well when they did it that way. And we already have, even 8% of our students being unhappy and going to their second choice, we hear it. It comes back.
Is second choice, though, of their core classes or those extras electives? I mean, because.
Electives, yes.
Yeah, you don't have a second choice for core
For core
classes because they have
classes.
to be taken sequentially.
Yeah.
So the 92% factors all, not
Yes.
just core.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we could move one, and it's like, oh, this is a great idea, but then we could drop down because there might be different needs in that class, so we could actually then drop down to like 88%, and so then we move it back and start over again.
That seems like a very high percentage, having kids at multiple schools for electives. I think 92% seems very high for
Well,
electives.
It works out that way because it's based off of student requests, so we know how many sections we need. So if you know that 90 kids requested a class, we're going to need 3 sections, then we create those sections.
Yeah.
Because that's what the students requested.
And if we don't have a staff member to meet those, do you just put a long-term sub or then you go to second choice?
We haven't had to use a long-term sub yet.
Okay.
But if I don't have a staff member, then we would have to go to second choice. But I need a staff member because I still have the students who need to seat that period.
Correct. And is that then, as a parent, is there a communication of, hey, this was their first choice, but we haven't been able to fill that, so it's going to be a sub, or we can give them their second choice, but it's a different class, or that doesn't even come into play?
If we
I
had
guess
to
that's
put-
trying to
Yeah.
play with those numbers. That's what I'm trying to.
I think I get what you're getting at, Vice President Walker. So there's 2 different evils. One is my kid's in a class, their second choice class. The other one is they're in an unqualified teacher's class, somebody who's not certified or whatever it may be. Maybe they'd prefer their second choice
Yes.
elective rather than be in a class with a teacher who's not certified. So right now, we're not there. Like, we haven't had to have that at this point. And we'll be at 92%, hopefully within a couple weeks. So we know that, and that gives us June to figure out, does so-and-so have a certification that means they can also teach a section of, I can't even think, digital communications or whatever it may be. And they may, and often a teacher can teach like 1 period out of their certification if we need to. So like right now we do have a teacher who's teaching, I think, 3 or 4 preps for next year because she just wants her schedule filled out to 1.0, even though we didn't have 1.0 worth of kids sign up. And so she says, okay, go ahead and give me all these other preps that are a little bit wonky. Like, I can't think of an example of what one of them might be.
So she might teach 2 sections of CTE, a section of English, and a section of a world language. And they're willing to do that so that they aren't part-time. The other thing that I was trying to think for filling the whole, just typically we don't have issues with that. Or,
Okay.
there we go, it came back to me. We offer the opportunity for teachers to teach 6/5. And a lot of times they'll take us up on that opportunity because it's a significant add to their income. So if I have a dangling English 1 section that I don't have
they don't
anyone
have
to
a prep.
teach,
That's what you
they
mean,
teach
6
instead of
fifths.
having a prep, they pick it up. And
Okay.
we're fortunate enough to have our teachers willing to do that as well.
Okay. Okay.
And Member Walker, if I could touch on the certification and the substitute. So typically, when we run into, we have a substitute in a position, usually that's because it was a late resignation, and so all of a sudden we're committed to a schedule, we're committed to a class, it's been already communicated to students. We've lost that teacher, but we still want to offer, for instance, culinary this year. We lost our culinary teacher, able to find a fantastic one, but we would fill with a sub. So as we get resignations and we do hiring now, they're still making those adjustments. Math and sciences are probably the most challenging because you may have a science candidate that is qualified in physics, and so they're shifting the physics sections to that teacher. So now those other teachers are taking on the biology, more biology, less physics. And so it's kind of a back and forth working game of the applicants that we're getting, and then kind of committing to that schedule based on who signed their contract, who we have here today, with the hopes that we don't have any last-minute resignations, then we are trying to fill that exact teacher, trying to emergency certify someone, or putting in a long-term sub at that point.
Yeah, I know we've had the art position open with one of them moving out of state. So that's where I was like, when do you start filling in those gaps?
The other question I have.
So with an art candidate, like that will be somebody we will be able to fill that position. And we still have plenty of time between now and August because it's for 24, 25. And so we'll be able to fill a position like that. Whereas if it happens in the middle of the year, that makes it a challenge. But I think one of the things too, like what Dr. Hendrickson was saying, it's great when a teacher has multiple certificates and they're kind of a Renaissance person because we can use them in a lot of ways. And I mean, just going back full circle, we want our teachers to be happy. We love our teachers. We want to do everything we can to keep them happy, but that's not part of our mission statement, is to keep adults happy. We have our students who signed up for these classes. We're going to do everything we can to find teachers who are qualified to teach those students. And if that means that somebody has multiple preps, then they do. And we've done a really good job of not having them have to teach a lot of preps, but some of them get stuck there.
What's multiple preps?
So, I'm sorry, yeah, that means like different classes that they prepare for.
Oh,
so if,
So our Mandarin teacher next year, to be full-time, will teach 7 different levels in 5 periods.
Got it.
So it's when you have IB, AP, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you have to combo the classes because the numbers, and they're willing to do it. We always ask them, how do you want to combo this? What do you want to do? But it's not any less work for them because they're still preparing 7 different lesson plans.
Okay.
compared to an algebra teacher who is probably teaching 5 sections of Algebra 1 because everybody has to take Algebra 1. So our elective teachers usually end up getting a lot of preps.
Yeah.
And then those niche IB.
Like the IBAP.
Question I have on the EVIT side of things, given the current schedule, how does that impact the numbers for students being able to come back to school and take classes? Is there anything, what's the approach on that?
Our EVIT kids they're there in the morning. So they'll take their classes in the morning and then they get on the bus at 10:30 and go out to EVIT and come back at 4 o'clock. If they choose to exit the EVIT program, then they meet with their counselor to fill those spots in their schedule.
But part of the problem is that time gap coming back, so that takes them out of a lot of programs. So is there any conversation? Because again, that changes some of the numbers. Just curious.
The best conversation, Member Moore, would be that we need a place right close to us that can offer them. And so when Aaron was talking about a satellite campus, we would like to, at some point, have more of a satellite campus. Right now we have some classes sprinkled. I don't want to say sprinkled. They're quality classes, excellent classes on our campus. But if we had a more robust, I feel like they changed the name. Is it still a satellite campus? Satellite campus here, then those students could absolutely go there second and third period and come back for periods 4, 5, 6. That would work. But because they're far away, I mean, we can't fix the 50-minute commute, unfortunately. So our best bet has been that we can be flexible with that 0-hour class. And so next year we're going to be a little bit more flexible with the 0-hour class so that those students are driving. They love 0-hour. It's the best. 6:15
Nothing like starting the day at 6:15 in the morning. Yeah, we're working on that. We found a different path.
If we're about the students,
yes.
we got to be about the students.
If we could just not have that, that's a fixed variable, is the drive over to EVIT. If we could just not have a 50-minute drive, we would not. But we do have a creative solution of offering that 0-hour as a more flexible class online, and that will help it.
The only 0-hour will be banned, and that's at the request of the students.
Any other?
This is why I don't do puzzles. I have such a headache now. But I just had a couple real quick questions. And you're talking about all these sections that you had to fill out, and the students pick the courses that they take. Do they also, like, say, like, when during the day they would want to take it, or is that just not part of the deal? You get plugged into that thing?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so, I just wanted to make sure.
However, Member Fortney, for some reason in Cave Creek, they all believe if they're a senior, they get to take them periods 1, 2, 3, 4, and they get periods 5 and 6 off. And that's like this unwritten, we dare not mess with that right now. So even though they're not selecting it, in their heads it is totally selected, and we're not going to mess with that right now at this time, maybe later.
The only other thing I had, just a question, and I guess it just takes this whole puzzle and then just does that little twist to it. I know in my school, kids are taking classes and having some problems in it, or not, it's not there working for them, and so they ask for a lot of changes. Do you see that a lot? How often does that happen, and what kind of effect does it have overall on your schedule when those happen?
So our counselors get 10 additional days on their contract, so they work those 10 additional days, and then I use some of my M&O money to pay them to come in over the summer and work with new students who are registering, because there's nothing more scary than showing up on the first day and not having a schedule, so we work to have them scheduled on that first day. The other thing they work on is looking at the students who failed a class and getting them in the class. Now they're going to have to take it in person, so we're working on adjusting that. They do have the opportunity to take it in summer, but if it doesn't get done, then we go in quickly and adjust those, because they have a hard deadline to get those to us so that it's not last minute.
Do you mean though, once the class starts?
Yeah, and then that too, like they come to the counselors or to you and say, I wanted to take this class and it is just not working, I need to change it. And how often does that happen, where kids are, during the school year, saying,
So we
I
let
want to
them
get out of
level
this?
change within the first 10 days.
Okay.
So give them 2 weeks to kind of figure out if it's a good fit, to make that decision. Not just the student, the teacher recommendation as well, and we always call the parent, because, my daughter, Kennedy Marie, I might have signed her up for honors, and she's going to go talk to her counselor and say it's not a good fit, but mom and dad might have a different opinion. And so we do include the parents on that conversation to make sure everybody's on the same page before we move them down in something that might impact a weighted GPA.
Thank you.
Any questions, Jackie?
I'm just curious how involved your coffee with the counselors, do you have a good parent turnout for that? Is there a lot of involvement?
I'd say the younger grades have more involvement. That's an unfortunate beast of the high school, is the older they get, the less involved they are. We are working on we do it during the day, and I know people work, and so one of my goals next year is to work with the new CTE person to record it and then be able to post it online as well. But we had, on average, I would say 30 to 40 parents there, and then they share the information out, and we always post the presentation to our website as well, so it's accessible.
You mentioned that coding the master schedule can take up to 100 hours. I don't know if you're going to have an answer to this question, but do you have an idea how many hours are involved in putting these schedules together as a whole?
It's the whole team right here.
Yeah.
At times, countless hours. Jason and Vicki work super closely. We kind of put work in on the front end with the course guide. I would say it's been a priority since March. I couldn't even give you an estimate of the amount of hours. Jason, what do you think?
There's been many hours that I'm at school late working on it. I'll go through and come home and have dinner, and then I'm working on it in the evenings, on the weekends, things of that sort. Since March, as Ms. Varela said, and just today I was going through and working on some other tweaks here and there on things because of some different needs. So it's constantly going through and happening on top of all the other responsibilities that go through and happen day to day when students are there. I feel like when our students are there, my priority should be working with the students.
So, you say 100 for him, at least the same for Vicki. So, hundreds of hours with the manpower.
It's evident, based on all of the information that you've provided, that it's really a countless number of hours. It is really an intricate process, and I appreciate with everything you guys have to do with putting these schedules together. We really appreciate the time and effort that you everybody put into putting this together, because I know putting the presentation together wasn't an easy task in itself. And it's been very enlightening. And I just have a heightened appreciation for what goes into the schedule. And so, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right, item 5.1, our meeting minutes. On this item, well, is there a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, on this item, because Member Moore was not on the board at the time that the meetings took place, he cannot vote. That's why it was pulled out. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item 5.1 passed. Item 5.7, the monthly enrollment report. All right. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, the only reason I wanted to pull this again was to just address the issue with what we're seeing here in this district. And I did actually happen to pull it when we actually went up 3, so that was cool. So I was really pleased about that. But my question again would be, now the numbers here say that we have 978 students that are out using the ESA vouchers. We're not down 978 students, so how would you account for some of that, for those numbers?
Thank you, Member Fortney, members of the board. So to answer that question is, we don't have where those 978 students were attending last year. I have yet to get that information from the Department of Education. So I have asked for it. I would like to know, were these students already attending private schools? We do know that from our demographer report that we capture about 50% of the students who actually live in our district. Mm-hmm. So where are those students going? We know, as Member Moore had mentioned before, students they choose other public schools. They choose charter schools. But on the flip side, students choose us too. We have several students who are open enrolled here in this district. So in order to determine where those 978 students were going last year, we know for a fact they weren't going here, right? Because we did not lose that many kids.
Right.
And I would venture to say that the reason that we lost the kids that we lost this year was that attrition from kinder to high school. I don't think a lot of our kids left us to go to private schools. I think they were already in the private school.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And if I just may clarify also in the comments that were made earlier about our enrollment and ESA enrollment, where you saw the first several years of ESAs where the students were 80, 100 kids, and then all of a sudden they went up to 978. Special education students have been able to participate in these voucher programs for many years.
Right.
And as a parent, if you have a special needs student, there are a lot of specialty schools out there that meet your needs of your student more than we at public schools can do, right? So that's why the number that we had any
Right.
at that point, and now every student qualifies. So that's the difference.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess just so until we get that information, you can kind of assume that on a state budget level, we're just now subsidizing private school.
Yes, Member Walker, that would be an accurate statement. We are subsidizing private schools, and if I may, with little accountability for how that money is actually being used in their private schools, nor do their children have to take the test, high-stakes test that our students have to participate in, where we are accountable for making sure we are delivering quality education to our students.
Okay, thank you.
Is there ever any data published about what those kids go on to do? Do they go to secondary schools? Is any of that ever tracked, or do we even know?
Are you, I'm
The
sorry, Member
ESA.
Ilmer,
Sorry.
The ESA students, no, there's no tracking, there's no accountability, not like, we have to track our post-secondary success of our students, and that's part of how we are actually evaluated in our grading system that we receive. But no, private schools do not have any reporting requirements at all.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, 5.7 passed. Action consent. Your motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Item
President Busby, members of the board, with your most recent action, I would like to make a couple of announcements. We have a couple of people here today that were just approved for new positions next year. First, I'd like to start off introducing Mr. Robert Gilmore. He has served in the education system for over 30 years. He's graduated from San Jose State University with a degree in liberal studies and a minor in special education. He began his career as a special education teacher and football coach, first in San Jose, California, then later here in Phoenix. Robert brings a wealth of experience with both school management and special education law. He looks forward to providing all students with the best opportunity to grow and become wonderful citizens upon graduating of Cactus Shadows High School. I'd like to please extend a warm welcome to our new assistant principal for the 24-25 school year, Mr. Robert Gilmore. Secondly, not a stranger to us, but it is my pleasure to announce Mrs. Jill Serino is going into her 24th year in education. Makes me feel old because I was a teacher when she joined Sonoran Trails as a rookie teacher, so we won't do the math on me. She started her career in 2001 right here at Sonoran Trails. After 10 years teaching English, she earned a master's in leadership and left CCUSD to become an assistant principal. She was an assistant principal for 6 years at Palo Verde Middle School and principal both in the Washington School District. Then she was transferred to Mountain View Elementary School as a turnaround principal for 4 years. After 10 years in Washington, she decided it was time to come home and became the principal of Sonoran Trails. There she spent 3 years. She now joins our district team with a great amount of work in policy, law, building systems, and leading all different types of employees. It is my pleasure to please welcome and congratulate Mrs. Jill Serino on taking over as the Director of Student Services for the 24-25 school year.
Okay. Item 6.1, fiscal year 2023-24 budget revision, presented by Mrs. Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, President Busby, members of the board. So as I shared with you earlier this evening in my presentation, minor changes to the budget that you see that we're asking you to approve so that we can submit this to the Department of Education as our final budget for this school year. I move that the governing board approve the revised 2023-24 budget as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 6.1 passes. Item 7.1, the ASBA 2025 legislative session political agenda, presented by me. Okay. The Arizona School Board Association every year asks all of the school boards across the state to submit their political agenda, the political issues that are relevant or important to each of the districts, because every district has a different personality. With that said, ASBA has presented a list of their items that they are targeting as items that they want to pursue on their political agenda, and they're asking school boards to either ratify that or submit some modifications to their agenda. So, with that said, we need a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Fortney,
Yeah.
you seem to be our legislative expert here, so I will defer to you as far as leading the political agenda.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Well, when I look at this, basically what we want to do is we want to see, are they covering the things that we want to cover that are important to us, those big, bold items like that one there. There's like 5 of those. And then is there anything else that we want to add to it? Is there anything that we feel is important? And so personally, I think that the 5 that they are talking about here are fine. The preserving and strengthening the local control, advocating for student outcomes, there's the student outcomes, and requiring the accountability of tax dollars, kind of an important thing here. The rural and remote schools and school safety and security, these are their main things. And the federal advocacy. So these are, in my opinion, they're good. The thing that I was going to bring to this, as you probably are aware since I've been talking about it all night, is that we are supposed to be, when you run for school board and you talk about all the school board stuff, it's supposed to be, it's nonpartisan and it's about the students, and it definitely is about the students, but it is also political. And you have to accept that, and you have to understand that. You can't just say, oh yeah, everything is just great, because sometimes the politics does get in the way. And in this case, and I'm talking again about the ESA, the universal ESA thing that was passed a couple of years ago, that is having a devastating effect on our public schools. I mean, this is almost like a fifth of what of our students that could be here that are going someplace else. And yet I know some people are coming in, and that's great, but this is almost $6 million that we don't have here, and we're looking for every dollar that we can rub together here to keep things going and going good for our students. So what I'm asking for when we get into this is that we really do advocate for the fact that there's factions of this legislature that think this is a great idea. And yes, they end up subsidizing private schools because, most of these people have already been going to private schools, and now they're getting a $7,000 to $10,000 to $20,000 coupon to keep taking their kids there. I think, and it's having major effects on other schools. PV is closing schools because they've lost so many kids. I think we as school boards of public district schools have to really emphasize that these things are detrimental to our students in Arizona. They're detrimental to public education. And the lack of accountability for private schools, there's so many things that are going on with it. And I know that some legislatures really like the private schools more than they do this. It's kind of in what they vote. So we have to be aware of that. We have to push this thing. So how do we want to say that? I'm not sure. I would like to just be able to repeal the entire universal thing. I understand that some kids need these things because they are children with special needs. Understood. But this has gone out of control, and every school district is paying the price here. So for my 2 cents, I would want to add something about having ASBA work to repeal, because capping is not enough now. The horses have already left the barn here. So what I would like to what I'd like to do is really say, we need to emphasize stopping this before it does more damage. It's already costing the state, $1 billion this year. So how we want to put that, I'm not sure, but and I would definitely love to hear any other discussion about this. I don't want it all to be just about me, but this is where I've been since reading that Brookings Institute thing and looking at the ADE numbers. So there you go.
I mean, I agree. I think funding is probably the focus out of all of these. I mean, even when you talked about kindergarten being only half funded at the public school level, well, you could take a voucher at your private school and that could technically fund. I mean, if it's a minimum of $7,000, we're getting $6,000 a student. That those numbers are definitely taking away from the state budget overall. So, to me, funding is huge. On top of, I think, not only the universal vouchers, we have to remember that your private school tax credits, where we've been capped at $400 per family for public schools, is at $2,400 now. So that's just another bucket coming from our tax dollars that are still subsidizing this private education. So I think a huge focus on the funding aspect of this is huge for us as well.
I agree with that. In addition, I think there needs to be a focus on the accountability to the recipients of our subsidizing dollars. And if the state could manage to come up with some accountability formulas, that might kind of help curb the problem in itself, because I'm guessing that some of the schools probably are not going to want to have to jump through the number of hoops that public schools have to jump through.
That's for sure.
And Member Fortney, members of the board, I would just like to echo that sentiment as well. We've seen in other states like Michigan that when they instituted accountability measures, there was a large decrease because they did not want to open up books in the same way that a public school is required to and follows that law. So again, I've not been, everybody in this room has heard me say this, I am not afraid of competition. Bring me your private schools, bring me your charter schools. Let's just play by the same rules and have the same accountability, especially for taxpayers' dollars. That accountability, in my mind, is really paramount. So that's my 2 cents, just to help inform perhaps you wanted to do something that's along the lines of really focusing on that accountability, because I think that coming into play could have longer term ramifications in terms of perhaps diminishing some of that.
I think if we can just, emphasize that the ASBA needs to push for legislation that is prioritizing public education in the future, rather than going to really helping the private schools. I think that would go a long way. And then again, yes, adding that accountability and oversight would definitely stem things that are definitely going the wrong direction right now.
How does it work from here in terms of, so ASBA puts this forward, this is their political agenda, it's pretty robust, so we can see looking at it, what's the plan then? I see all of this stuff, what is the plan? And how, that is one of their priorities, how do they prioritize that, and then what do they do to take action? Is that something you work on with them when you're in meetings with them as the liaison?
Yeah, there's a meeting that we have once a year where they go over this, and school board members from all over the state come in and talk about what's important to them. And so you definitely get some really interesting and diverse discussions, because you have the rural communities that have far different needs than some of the things that right down in urban areas, or smaller schools districts versus bigger. So there's a lot of talk about that, and they come up with their political plan, and then they go through the process of advocating with legislators to get some of these things moving in the right direction. Needless to say, because of the makeup of the legislature right now, they haven't gotten a lot of these things because they don't want to do that. They have been really pushing for private schools, and a lot of the legislation that has been moving forward, gives more leeway to private schools. There's some things where they just wanted to have just us public school teachers fingerprinted, but not the private school, which is a scary idea. Why would you not want private school teachers to be fingerprinted? But that's the makeup that we're in right now. So I think just being able to have our ASBA people going to our legislators and saying, hey, we need to prioritize public education, public school teachers, public district schools, public charters that are affected by all of this, that's the way that this goes. And so you have that voice, you share it, they all vote on it, and then they go forward and try and get things done.
Do you feel like it's too much?
I feel like it's not enough, but I mean, when you get into some of the subtopics here, and a lot of these are all, they are all gone over. Every one of these bullet points has gone over, and sometimes there's nice long discussions about the wording, but so I don't think it's too much. I think they've covered a lot of the areas. I wouldn't want any of these to be removed. But I think that we definitely need to at least have this and then just make sure that we're doing that as well.
Right, but the unfortunate to politics is the more you give, the more you don't get. So when you're diluting the water here on what the real movement is, you do lose some of the punch. So, for example, if it's really about competing with private schools and you have these funding challenges, why not just say, great, I'm all in on it, but at least level the playing field. Like, if we're going to play the game, let's play it on equal. So we can go, as public schools, go and raise money from parents or whatever. We have the same means of activity to generate revenue as private. If you want to make that fair, then that's fair. I mean, I think some of the challenges, especially from whether you're trying to get people behind it or you're trying to move it through the different chains of the politics, it gets messy and diluted because we're all over the place and we're not concise. Like, pick one, double down, and go all in.
And Member Moore, I understand what you're saying. I just like to remind everybody that really this comes from ASBA, so they've decided that these are the priorities, and our option tonight is, do we want to add something additional? Do we want to send Member Fortney with here is the focus? Perhaps that could be the message that he then takes, is we really want to focus on this one more so than anything, or do we want to add something? So I just wanted to clarify that this is what they've already decided, which is different than I think years past. They're coming to us with, here's our priorities. If you want, you can add one, and perhaps our ad based on the conversation might be, well, this is really where we want you to focus and try to get the most bang for the buck, so to speak.
I would agree.
Okay. So at this point, are we all in agreement that the funding of the ESAs and the accountability is what you need to take to ASBA?
That maroon colored one right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and it would be nice to get back like what their game plan is then, and maybe they do that, so I'm not pretending they don't, but love to see, even for each of those big bullet points, here's our top priorities, and here's what we're doing, and here's how you can help as a board.
Well, ASBA in general, this is kind of a shift from what they've done in the past. This is a better, probably, representation of probably what affects more school districts across the state. In the past, my sense is that it's been very politically driven, and there was very little that really ever was designed to even remotely benefit us. So it's a step in the right direction.
I think if we say that these ones that they have presented to us are fine, and then add the one about the funding of the ESAs and prioritizing public schools with accountability to private schools, then we would probably, I think that would be a good message to send to ASBA and say, this is what we need you guys to work on for this next calendar year.
Okay, so,
So we need a motion about which one
yeah.
you're going to add.
Back.
Yes.
Sorry. These are fine, and add the one about funding ESAs and prioritizing public schools with accountability for private schools. A good message to send to ASBA.
Okay. We need a motion for that. So what she said, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, all right. Item 8.1, upcoming calendar events, presented by Mr. Dolezal.
President Busby, members of the board, upcoming events, May 22nd, 6 p.m., Desert Diamond Arena, class of 2024 graduation. You all have parking passes there. That sheet of paper is your parking pass, so please put that in your windshield. They have requested that you're there by 4:45 for those of you that are able to attend. 8th grade celebration, Sonoran Trails Gymnasium, May 23rd. They are at 12:30, 1:30, and 2:30. Our last day of school for students is May 23rd. Our last day of school for teachers is May 24th. Memorial Day is May 27th. District offices and all offices are closed. That also starts the beginning of our summer hours, where district office employees are working from 7 to 5. We're working 4/10s instead of 5/8 at that point in time, and we are closed on Fridays.
Awesome. Item 9, adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We are adjourned, and it is 7:50.